Welcome to a special discussion on cross-border talks in a peer-to-peer format between me and Małgorzata Kulbaczewska. It is 20th of April 2023, and we are going to have some talk on the agricultural imports from Ukraine and the attitude of the countries of the eastern part of the EU towards them. A number of countries of the region, such as Poland, Slovakia, Hungary and Bulgaria, banned the imports of Ukrainian agricultural products, claiming that their own local agricultural producers can't sell their stuff and can't make profits from them. What seems to be okay for the time being is that transit of Ukrainian agricultural products will be allowed, as agricultural products are a big part of Ukrainian export. And now we are on to the situation in Poland with Małgorzata Kulbaczewska. And my first question towards her is what is happening right now? What are the latest news regarding this issue from the Polish side?
Hello, Vladimir. Thank you for recording this extra talk between the two of us. And indeed, the agriculture production of Ukraine is now the main topic discussed in Polish political debate. 2 days ago, we reached a conclusion, an agreement with the Ukrainian side, which basically permits transit of Ukrainian agricultural productions through Polish territory, but not selling the products here. Basically, the products covered by the agreement are grains, vegetables, fruits, all kinds of dairy and meat products, as well as sugar. All this stuff was imported to Poland last year after the agreement of Ukrainian grain export. It was supposed to be sold abroad outside the European Union, but instead a lot of this production actually stayed in Poland and was bought by Polish companies or by foreign-owned companies operating in Poland. As a result, Polish production of wheat became increasingly unaffordable, as 1 ton of wheat is now about 20 to 25% cheaper in purchase points. So it's a very bad news for Polish agriculture producers who sell some of the grain just now, who want to acquire capital for spring works and investment in this season. Also, Polish customers are worried about the quality of Ukrainian grain, which is not controlled anyhow, and nobody checks, for instance, whether the production could contain heavy metal elements, which is not impossible if the grain comes from war zone. And as we know, all the territory of Ukraine has been attacked, has been bombed by Russia. So, in fact, there are no safe locations in the territory of Ukraine. And if the wheat is to be offered to EU customers, then it should undergo the checks, which is not happening. According to agriculture organizations in Poland, at least 4 million tons of grain entered Polish territory since the beginning of war, and at least a significant part of that was sold here instead of being exported further. We were said that this grain is to save North Africa and other parts of the global south from the hunger catastrophe. In fact, a big percentage of this grain entered the European market. It was simply sold there as a cheaper product, according to the best or worst principles of capitalism. So the issue of Polish agriculture production and the problems that the Polish agriculture producers started to have in connection with the Ukrainian grain import were important for Polish government, as the village voters, the voters from the countrysides, are crucial for the victory that the government would like to have in the elections that are scheduled for this autumn. So on 30th March, the Polish government reached a temporary agreement with agriculture producers in Poland, promising them to pay extra for every ton of wheat sold in Poland if the price is not satisfactory, but also to work to have the tariffs on Ukrainian grain reinstalled on the European level, which, I can elaborate on this later, sounds quite unrealistic. Then the Polish government declared a total ban on Ukrainian agriculture import, no matter whether it was to be transit or to be sold here. And 2 days ago, there was an agreement reached with the Ukrainian side, which basically says that import for the sale in European Union is not okay, but transit will be put back to work. Now the Polish side claims that the agriculture production in Poland is safe because all the transited products will be put into the SEND system. This is an international system that allows to monitor the goods that are being sold and sent. So no Ukrainian agricultural productions will enter Polish territory and be sold here in the European Union. Everything is supposed to be exported outside of the community. The Ukrainian state is happy because the agriculture export accounts now, according to some analysts, to as much as 70% of all Ukrainian exports. So getting paid for this production is essential for Ukrainian war effort. The Polish government also seems calm at the moment, as the agriculture producers have been calmed down. The question is that for how long this agreement will last.
Okay, there are a number of sides and a number of dimensions of this conflict. For example, Ukraine is in a war, and it looks like the European Commission and the European Union in general wants to support the Ukrainian economy in these conditions. And you mentioned that agriculture is a big part of the Ukrainian export. On the other hand, we have rising prices in the EU over the last year, and maybe cheaper agricultural products allow for cheaper food prices, at least in some cases. And on the other side, there are the producers which every country of our region and every government of our region wants to protect. So who has the right in this situation? Who has most of the right?
Vladimir, it is a tricky question. And you know that if I say who is right and who is not, it can also put me in the pro-government or anti-government camp in Poland. But never so, I will try to elaborate what arguments each side presents, as in fact everybody has some right behind his position. As Mykola Solski, who is the Minister of Agriculture in Ukrainian government, put it, Ukraine understands that Polish agriculture producers are in tough situation, but the Ukrainian producers are even in a more difficult position. Then he quoted statistics that show that a lot of Ukrainian agriculture land was in fact excluded from any works because of the war, because of the bombings, because of the invasion. And as I said, agriculture export is crucial, is vital now for Ukrainian war effort. So we can understand the Ukrainian side that wants to keep the grain flowing and wants to have the grain sold. On the other hand, on the side of Polish government, I can also understand them that they want to protect the domestic production. However, we need to be honest and say that some of the moves on the Polish side, or rather some of the things that were not done on the Polish side, have actually worsened the situation. Let me just say that from the very beginning, the wheat was supposed to be transited only through Poland and other states in Central Europe. However, nobody controlled whether it is an actual transit taking place. And nobody controlled which companies might be buying grain here in Poland, and nobody tried to stop them from doing that. And according to a journalist investigation that was published by Wirtualna Polska news site last week, there were at least 20 companies, some of them Polish-owned, some other Ukraine-owned, and some other with German and Lithuanian owners, who were buying grain here in Poland, the Ukrainian grain. And we are speaking about huge money, huge dimensions of production, huge volumes of grain being consumed here or being processed to get animal food, as most of these companies are actually active in meat production, and the meat prices did not fall. So we see that a lot of entities were making a great business with this cheap Ukrainian grain coming, and the good of the hungry people of Northern Africa, which was so emphasized when the grain agreement was first introduced, really was in the very last place here. And when I am speaking about the good business, I think that I need to mention the European Union as well, because in 2021, 28% of all European spending on grain went to Ukraine. It was we are speaking about money spent on buying agriculture production from Ukraine. There are states in the EU like the Netherlands or like Spain who are among Ukraine's top customers in this area. They would not want tariffs reinstalled. They want to get cheap products from Ukraine, especially that Ukraine is mainly the exporter of the non-processed products, and that some of these Ukrainian grains then actually comes back to Ukraine in the forms of pastry, cakes, and all this kind of stuff, when Ukraine actually pays for that much more. So a great business is going on many levels, and I can't really blame Polish government for standing up here and trying to protect agriculture production here in Poland, especially that, as I said, people from the countrysides are important voters for the Law and Justice Party.
This situation strengthens the so-called sovereignist tendency in a number of countries in our region, because once again there is this rhetoric that Western European politicians or leaders don't understand our specifics and our poverty or our difficulties. Our interests as well are not taken into account according to some of these sovereignist people. So what do you expect to happen in the near future regarding this situation? What will be the final results, both in terms of rules and trade and in politics?
First of all, I would say that I am happy that the transit agreement was signed by Polish and Ukrainian side. If it is really happening, I mean, if Ukrainian grain is really exported, then everybody should be satisfied. Poland, because we are supporting Ukraine. Ukrainians, because they get funds for their war effort. Also, the food production is put to the market. The problem is that I am very afraid that this agreement will not last long and that new tensions will reappear. The problem is that Poland has actually no infrastructure to cope with such great volumes of export. According to former Agriculture Minister of Poland, Marek Sawicki, who is connected to Polish Peasants' Party, Poland produces about 35 tons of wheat per year. We are now speaking about Polish domestic productions. Less than 30 tons, 29 is consumed here. So there is 6 million tons left for export. If we have to export this and 4 million tons more from Ukraine, we don't have stores, we don't have infrastructure to that. We haven't built it since the first agriculture agreement with Ukraine was set. Perhaps we should also ask why it was not done. Perhaps we should also ask why nobody in Ukraine, nobody even from the Ukrainian companies who are responsible for that, had another agreement with Poland to help to develop the infrastructure. We are not speaking here about little Ukrainian farmers who make a great effort to make the ends meet. This agriculture production from Ukraine is coming from huge companies as well. The other question you asked me about sovereignism and whether the question of grain would not be exploited in political campaigns in Poland. Well, it already is. And if the problems reappear, and as I said, I expect them sadly to reappear, then we can expect even two kinds of sovereignist discourse to be strengthened. One coming from the Law and Justice Party and another kind coming from Confederacja or Confederation, the far-right party, which is now rising to be the third political force in Poland. We can expect that Law and Justice, as it was already done, will try to cover the question of Polish companies or companies operating in Poland having actually profited from the grain, but instead they will focus on the actions of European Union, on the intransigent position of European Union on the question of tariffs, And yes, they will say basically what you have just said, Vladimir, that European Union does not take our interest into account. They don't understand our specifics. They impose politics which is profitable for them, and not for Central Europe, etc., etc. The second discourse coming from Confederacja will be even more dangerous because it will be purely nationalist. I guess it will be also anti-Ukrainian. There are already first signs that these party politicians try to say that Ukraine just wants from Poland to support without offering anything in exchange, and that Poland is actually losing from supporting Ukraine. And here the grain case will be exploited. I am pretty sure of that. The other question that is left to be solved in the future is that what happens to Ukrainian agriculture if Ukraine takes further steps in European integration. Ukraine is a power in agriculture production. It has great grounds for that. If the war stops, it will be a perfect area to have agricultural productions on a scale that is unthinkable in many of European countries, including Poland. What happens then? Is European Union so willing to see the agriculture in the whole community, let's say, restructurized because of Ukrainian grain being the part of common market permanently? Well, these are the questions that we'll need to answer in the future. And they will be essential for European integration, for European economy, and for all of us.